So for me, the biggest challenge in Battletech is that there are so many amazing mechs to play. And certainly we all have our favorite, our top 5, 10, or 15. And I just can't get enough games in. I do my best to explore all of the mechs in my collection. And of course, this is not unique to just Battletech, but like any miniature war game, there should be a disclaimer when you get involved in mini wargaming. No matter how set you think you are, no matter how perfect your army is, when you say you're done, and I've said I've been done with Battletech about 3 or 4 times in terms of growing my collection, you get a great idea. You see a new mech, you try out some new stuff, and next thing you know, you're hitting order for that Ironed Wind Metals or that Amazon order, and you've got some new mechs to paint. And then you're good for a little while. So with all that, I try to cycle through a variety of mechs, trying out a different number of tactics on the table, exploring the narrative. But there are certain machines that, for me, gravitate towards the top. And I'm influenced in a lot of different ways. Sometimes, honestly, by looks, because it is a visual game. Also by the narrative. I try to immerse myself in the Battletech story because, and this plays really into the Marauder so well. Its history in the inner sphere, its kind of design philosophy and how it works. Because we're playing with miniatures and we have terrain and we have all these different effects. We're trying to create a reality. I remember playing some of the old Avalon Hill war games, kind of hex encounters, and they were very strategic. They were very advanced. But I had a challenging time immersing myself into it. This is also one of the reasons why I love Warhammer 40,000, historicals, ancients. So when I put down that Warhammer on the table, it's part love, it's part narrative, and it's part looking to make it work. So I feel with a lot of the early unseen, now re-seen designs, there's a couple of challenges as we move into the heavy class and assault mechs. Namely being that the weapons output based on the heat sinks, and this is Succession era, early Star League, things like that. We're not talking about clan refits, interjecting the clan technology. That fixes a lot of things, but it really changes the nature of Battletech before we get into the Lost Tech and things like that. Managing these machines with tremendous weapon output, but not enough heat sinks. So I feel it's easy to say, okay, look, obviously the Marauder is not the most optimal mech if you have your choice of an open book tech manual picking out what you're going to play. And some of us play Battletech that way. There are times when you want to approach the game that way. But when we take machines that are less than optimal, I feel like, I mean, look, if you inherited a Marauder, you are in a great spot in terms of society, in terms of prestige, in terms about your command on the battlefield. So if you inherited that mech, where we're interjecting a little Battletech RPG, you better learn how to pilot it. You better learn how to utilize it. You can't say, oh, the heat sinks aren't enough, I'm not going to play it. That is your lifeblood. That is your family on there. So on the tactical side, I try and look and say, okay, how do we utilize this mech the most effectively? And we're talking stock. As soon as we get into some variants, things change up a little bit. 2 PPCs, 2 medium lasers, and an autocannon. So we have decent long range for the mech. We have excellent, with the PPCs, medium range and lasers and the autocannon. We kind of have that mid-band, that medium, that short to medium range where we want to engage. The Marauder is not a point-blank type mech. You don't have fists for manipulation, so grabbing certain objects or utilizing that, you're going to be at a disadvantage. And also, if you are kind of clubbing away with the pods, the weapon pods, you're not firing most of your weapons. Compare this to something like, say, the Battlemaster. You choose not to shoot the PPC at short range because you're under the minimum. You got 2 fists, that's why it's the Battlemaster, and you have the whole torso full of medium lasers on there, and you've got the short-range missile, and you've got an answer for that sneaky little spider mech working around behind that thinks it's safe that you're going to fire off medium lasers. So the Marauder does not want to get to danger close point blank. Not that it doesn't have the tonnage, but then we're not firing those PPCs, also because of the minimum, and we're not firing the medium lasers. That's going to leave you with the autocannon. So tactically what I'm looking to do, let's look at heat management. Now, obviously, the terrain on the battlefield is going to modify things. It's going to change things. If there's a giant pool of water, my Marauder and my Thunderbolt are furiously rushing over there as fast as I can. And then that's a game changer. And on a side note, out of curiosity, kind of as these tactics ebb and flow, I usually don't play on maps or wargaming tables where there is enough water. It's very, very rare. I have a nice little kind of lake and river set. I should randomly roll. I should randomly break up my terrain if we're playing kind of hills and woods and forest and say, okay, in this part of the table, D6, what is it? 1 is forest, 2 is open ground, 3 is shrub work, 4 is a river or lake, and populate the table that way, because I certainly don't cycle through my terrain enough on there. We tend to naturally gravitate towards certain pieces that we enjoy seeing on the table. So that's going to give your Marauder a boost. If you're playing a coolant truck, that's going to give your Marauder a boost. Tactically, what I look to do is, as soon as we are in range, even if I'm going to need 11s and 12s to hit you, I'm going to start opening up with that autocannon. It has the range. I'm going to start letting you know, hey, we're going to start putting some shots down the field. And look, I might get lucky. Now, if I'm going to get lucky, this is just kind of superstition here. Again, this ebb and flow. Do I really want to, if I'm going to roll 12s, do I really want to expend my 12s at the beginning of the game at long range? I want to save my 12s for headshots. I want to save my 12s for, the short range clusters when I'm nailing you and stuff. I'm very superstitious that, like, in a given Battletech game, I'm going to roll 4 sets of 12s. I kind of want to save them at some point. Maybe that's just me. I have no type of scientific math hammer whatsoever, theory hammer to back that up. It's just a pulse. It's just an emotional attachment to the game. So we're going to open up with that autocannon. When we're in range for the PPC, I'm going to start cycling 1. Again, I'm going to look to put some dice down the field. I could get lucky, but I want to let you know that I'm shooting at you. I want to let you know and see how you react as a player. That when you start taking fire, well, not only do you know you're over the target, but it's also going to force you to commit. It's going to reveal really fast, is this the thrust of your attack? Think of if you have some mechs, of course, supporting each other, some mechs supporting each other, some infantry, some vehicles, total warfare, combined arms. If I start shooting at an element of, or a detachment or a portion of the units you have advancing, if you keep on advancing into that fire, I know that's the main element, the main thrust of your attack. Maybe part of your army is going to wheel around and try and attack my flank, and I really don't know what. Well, if I shoot, you're going to keep on going. So I also find your level of commitment there. So as soon as you can start putting some stuff down the table, we do that. This is why I think on a medium chassis, having something like the Blackjack to complement, AC2s, 2 points on there, standard ammo, what's that really going to do? It's a couple of dice. Or if we're going to spend the battle value upgrading to possibly something like the Jaeger Mech. Now, once we get into rifleman versus longbow, okay, now we've got some personal debates. I love them both, but I don't have the battle value for both. I tend to lean more towards the longbow because I have indirect fire options. And the rifleman has some vulnerabilities on there, but a rifleman's another great kind of support mech. So we're going to put some stuff downfield. What I'm looking to do with the Marauder is leverage that armor, because the armor's pretty decent on there, and fire off the PPCs. Now I'm going to be pushing the heat. I'm going to fire 1 and the autocannon, and then at some point I'm going to cycle 2. Then I've got to give it a little bit of a rest on there. I really need to keep that heat manageable. What this means is cutting down on the modifiers and the terrain that the best I can. So what we're trying to do here is, as I advance, I'm going to be running. While I'm running, that's going to give me a couple of hex modifiers, make it harder for you to shoot at me. That's protecting my mech. At the same time, it's going to give me that +2 on my dice roll to hit. Let's assume a base pilot. I'm hitting on 4s. So just by running, I'm now up to 6s on 2d6. 50-50 shot of hitting in there. Then we're going to add on your movement modifiers and hexes. What's that going to be? +1, +2, +3, +4. It's going to be something on there. Then we're adding in the range band. I can't control the range band because I'm going to be shooting at you as soon as I can. That range band is going to be coming down, but I want to try and hit you as best I can, even when it's at the higher end. I may or may not be able to influence your movement based on terrain. I mean, how many hexes you move, based on terrain, based on where I'm moving, based on mission goals. That's really in the moment, tactically deciding as a mech warrior where you're going, what you're doing. But I can try to control my movement. If I can get into position and not have my mech walk or run, that's bringing it down my dice roll by -1 or -2. That's a big deal, especially if you're going to push that heat and cook off 2. I'm also not generating heat. I'm saving, so I'm increasing my odds of hitting. I'm also cutting down on the heat by walking and running. Now, this is the challenge with the Marauder against some other mechs, something like the Grasshopper. I'm trying to think of mechs in a similar weight class. Other mechs where heat is less of a problem, you don't have to think about walking or running. You don't have to think about the point or two in heat generation, or if you had a mech with jump jets building a little heat, you don't have to think about that. The Marauder, you have to think about that all the time, and it adds things up with how it works. Keeping that movement modifier down as best we can. If I can also get into terrain, and maybe it's light woods or heavy woods or some sort of rocks, or if it's city-type terrain or a wall or a building, something that might block the lower portion of my mech to absorb some shots and make it a little bit harder to hit, that would be better too, because I'm not going to be getting on the alternate side, I'm not going to be getting that +1 or +2 from running. So we get the Marauder into a position. So it's kind of a battle pod that gets out there into that bunker, sits itself, and cuts down the best we can. At some point, I have to judge now, based on how fast the opposing mechs can move, when they're coming in, what's happening, switching from those PPCs to the medium lasers. And the challenge here, of course, is I want to engage the PPCs at short to medium range, making sure I don't go under the minimum, because then you're just stacking crazy dice. But also, if we're that close, we're in hand-to-hand, we're in close combat. And at the same time, being able to fire those medium lasers at long to medium range. You make that switch. Now, there's less damage output on there. There's also this idea of now, at this point, being able to fire every single turn. So ideally, what I will look to do is use the PPCs to punch through the armor. Once that happens and I go to internals and an opposing mech, yeah, I'd love to blast it with 10 points of internal damage, cut through it, gut it out. But I'm looking to score crits at this point. So switching to the medium lasers, keeping the heat down, being able to fire the 2 medium lasers every single turn, plus the autocannon every single turn once I've broken through those 2 internals, that's where we're utilizing it. So I feel like really more than any of the re-seen, unseen, understanding the heat management, being able to pace yourself to keep your heat down every turn and consistently fire those PPCs, to fire that autocannon, to fire those medium lasers, that is the power of the Marauder. And if my opponent does want to close and go fisticuff and duke it out, then I am going to redeploy. Then I'm going to start backpedaling. Then I'm going to start looking to bring up some other mechs, maybe be a little more aggressive with them on there, because certainly the Marauder is not one, in my opinion, that wants to engage in dedicated hand-to-hand, because then you're committed 100% to there, and I am not reliably firing those PPCs or those medium lasers. Side note, I could kick. I could fire those medium lasers, the autocannon, and kick. Yes, but kicking, certainly if it's a light or medium mech, that type of tonnage that I'm hitting you with the Marauder is just going to mess you up, or, if it's like a wasp or a stinger, just like split you in half. I have a little bit of a fear of kicking because you fall. I mean, there was one game where I was going up against a medium mech that was damaged. I mean, it's really messed. I run up there with my Atlas, just this massive Atlas on there, and just blasting it with the autocannon 20, feeling just amazing. And I'm like, I'm going to kick this mech, knock its leg off, and then just like body slam it. I kick, I miss, I fall down. Okay, I try to get up next turn. Mechs are starting to surround me. I don't get up. Pilot check, turn after that. Can't get up. Now I'm completely surrounded, and everybody's shooting on me. Try to get up again. Can't get up. I'm like Ed 209, just flailing about. Finally, I get up. I'm so messed up. Battle's like half over. It was just crazy. So that left like this paranoia of kicking. But also, not that kicking is bad, but the reason why you punch with a heavy mech is because you have that 1 in 6 chance. This is why I would rather go with the punching as opposed to a PPC, like in the Battlemaster case, or if it's a mech, the Thunderbolt, large laser, no medium. That's the challenge with the T-Bolt versus the Battlemaster. For a long time, I really liked the idea of the PPC because it does more damage. I'm a damage freak. One of my philosophies in Battletech is big guns never tire. But then I realized PPC has the minimum. So something on like the Battlemaster, when I get close, possibly before fisticuff, it's heat. It's going to be hard to shoot. We're under the minimum. Large laser T-Bolt has the advantage of always being able to shoot and then switching to there. But that's why even like with the T-Bolt, the choice of punching versus the large laser, stock, not a variant, I'm going to punch. That's a 1 in 6 chance of knocking your head off. If that doesn't crush and kill you, especially if you have a hit from before, it's going to force a pilot check. And even though, 3 up? I should know this. Stock conscious check is what? 3 up? It could happen. And you start kind of stacking those on there. So that is what we were looking at with the Marauder. A very challenging machine. A machine that certainly has a very soft spot in my mech warrior heart. And going on this philosophy, yeah, if we're just flipping through the book, there are better machines. But if we're playing Battletech, and if we are immersing ourselves in that narrative, then you have inherited this Marauder. You got to figure out how to use it. You don't want to be that son or daughter. You don't want to be the one to squander the family fortune and lose the heirloom mech and relegate your family. Because think about it. If you're a Marauder pilot, you've got the prestige. You're up there. You're not some light mech they're just going to throw out recon duty. You're not some mech that's just like the Vulcan on some backwater planet where they're not really going to commit you. You're going to be there to earn the most glory, earn the most C-bills. Not only, but everyone in the family is attached to you. You've got your no good cousin who you got a job, in the mech bay fixing stuff, who's just sponging off your name. You've got, another cousin who's running PR and doing stuff. You've got the whole family employed on there. If you lose that mech, everybody is kicked out to the curb. So we got to know how to use it.